My name is Sarah. I'm 29 years old, and for most of my life, I was known as the responsible daughter in my family. My younger brother Ryan was completely different. He was charming, confident, and somehow always got whatever he wanted. When Ryan announced that he was getting married to his girlfriend Emily, my parents were happier than I had ever seen them. They immediately started planning the wedding, and one night my father made an announcement that completely shocked me. We're giving Ryan and Emily $50,000 for their wedding. I almost dropped my glass. $50,000. I had never received anything close to that from my parents. Still, I smiled and congratulated my brother. I told myself that his wedding was important to him, and I didn't want to be jealous. At first, everything seemed fine. But Ryan quickly started spending more than the original budget. The venue became more expensive. Then he upgraded the food, flowers, decorations, photographer, and hotel rooms. Every time I warned him, he laughed and said, "Mom and Dad have it covered." I didn't think much of it until my mother called me 3 weeks before the wedding. "Sarah, I need you to help Ryan with some payments." I was confused. "What payments?" She said there were several bills that still needed to be paid. I reminded her that they had already given Ryan $50,000. My mother became quiet and then said, "You're his sister. You should help him." I couldn't believe it. "Mom, I'm not paying for Ryan's wedding." She told me I was being selfish and ended the call. The next morning, my father called me. His voice sounded serious. "Sarah, we have a problem." I asked what happened. He finally admitted that Ryan had gone far over budget. "How much?" I asked. My father hesitated. "The wedding is going to cost around $120,000. I was stunned. "You gave him $50,000 and he spent another $70,000? My father said Ryan needed more money and asked me to contribute $20,000. I immediately said no. My father became angry. "Don't embarrass your brother," he said. That sentence made me furious. I'm not embarrassing him. He spent money he didn't have. Why is that suddenly my responsibility? My father didn't answer. A few days later, something even worse happened. I received an email from the wedding venue asking me to confirm the final payment. I called them immediately. The remaining balance was almost $40,000. Then the manager told me something that made my stomach drop. My mother had apparently told them that I would be responsible for the final payment. I called Ryan. "Why does your wedding venue think I'm paying your bill?" He went silent. I asked again. Finally, he admitted that he had spent almost $90,000 already and had put a huge amount on credit cards. "Ryan, you were given $50,000. How did you spend nearly $90,000? He said he wanted the perfect wedding. He wanted everyone to remember it. I asked him why I should pay for something he chose to spend. He became angry and said, "Because you're my sister." That was the moment I finally lost my patience. Being your sister doesn't mean I'm your bank account. I love you, but I'm not going to destroy my savings because you wanted a wedding you couldn't afford. Ryan hung up. The next day, my mother called me crying. She said I was going to ruin my brother's wedding. I told her that Ryan was the one who had created the problem. She said, "But family helps family." I answered, "Family helps each other, Mom. Family doesn't secretly put a $40,000 bill in someone else's name." She went silent. For the next week, relatives started contacting me. My aunt told me I should just pay something. My cousin said I was being cruel. Nobody asked Ryan why he had spent so much money. Nobody asked my parents why they had given him $50,000 and then expected me to pay even more. Everyone just wanted me to fix everything. I refused. 5 days before the wedding, Ryan showed up at my apartment. He looked completely different. His expensive watch was gone, and he looked exhausted. He sat down and said, "Sarah, I messed up." I didn't answer. He continued, "I thought Mom and Dad would keep helping me. They always have." I looked at him and said, "That's exactly why you never learn to stop." He looked down. I told him that I wasn't trying to hurt him. I simply wanted him to understand that his decisions had consequences. Ryan finally admitted that he couldn't afford the wedding. He had spent all that money because he wanted to impress Emily, her family, our relatives, and everyone else. He wanted people to think he was successful. But now he was sitting in my apartment with thousands of dollars in debt. He asked me one last time if I could lend him the money. I told him no. Not because I hated him, but because if I rescued him again, nothing would ever change. Ryan eventually canceled several expensive parts of the wedding. He sold some of his expensive belongings and started working extra hours to pay his debt. The wedding was postponed. My parents were furious with me, but I stopped defending myself. For the first time, I realized I didn't have to convince everyone that I wasn't a bad person. A few months later, Ryan called me. His voice sounded calmer. He told me he had started paying down his credit cards. Then he said, "Sarah, I owe you an apology." I listened. "I thought you were trying to ruin my wedding," he said. "But now I realize you were the only person who actually told me the truth." I smiled. "What truth?" He laughed quietly. "That I was being stupid." We both laughed. Then he became serious. "I used to think family meant someone would always save you. Now I understand that sometimes family means someone refuses to let you destroy yourself." That conversation changed everything between us. Eventually, my parents apologized too. My father admitted they had made Ryan dependent on them by constantly rescuing him. My mother admitted that they had expected me to handle everything because I was responsible. I told them something they had never understood. Just because I can handle something doesn't mean I should always have to handle it. A year later, Ryan finally got married. The wedding was much smaller. There was no luxury hotel, no ridiculous spending, and no giant bill waiting at the end. Ryan and Emily paid for it themselves. It wasn't the wedding Ryan had originally imagined, but when I saw him that day, he looked happier than ever. Before the ceremony started, Ryan came over to me and smiled. "You know, Sarah, I'm actually glad you didn't pay that bill." I laughed. "Really?" He nodded. "If you had paid it, I probably would have learned nothing." I smiled and hugged my brother. For years, I thought being a good sister meant helping Ryan whenever he needed me. But I finally learned that there is a difference between helping someone and allowing them to use you. I didn't ruin my brother's wedding. I simply refused to pay for a life he couldn't afford. And sometimes, saying no isn't selfish. Sometimes, saying no is the first thing you have to do to make someone finally grow up.